If you make this one mindset shift, you'll be able to start designing and living a life worth remembering, one without regret. An emotion where less is genuinely more. An emotion where we experience it in the present, at the surface, but it's deeply grounded in the past. But for as much as we spend our lives trying to avoid this thing called regret, how exactly are we supposed to avoid something before it happens that only happens after it happens? Yeah, I guess that makes sense. In this video, together, we're gonna walk through one mindset shift you can make to start making intentional decisions to live more and regret less. For a moment, I just wanna talk about how people introduce themselves, right? Like, think about the last time someone introduced themselves to you in college, or after you graduate and you're at like a bar or at some kind of like housewarming function. Like, what things did they tell you about? In fact, I've actually got someone like I really want you to meet. Let me go grab him. Oh, hey, I'm Dennis. Nice to meet you. Tell you about myself. Yeah, gosh, that's a great question. Where do I even begin? So, I work at this company doing this, and before I worked at this company, I worked at this company. Oh my gosh, it's been a really long day. You'll have to forgive me. I'm getting my details all mixed up. I worked at this bank.
2 very boring minutes later.
Tell you what makes me different from all the other finance bros in New York. I like dessert? Oh shit, I'm getting a call from my mom. I swear it's not work. Yeah, Mom, do you want soft plastic covers or hard plastic covers on the books? Oh, later, dude. So, what do you think of that guy you just met? Kinda lame, right? I mean, he literally just read off his LinkedIn profile, tossed on an interest from his resume. I mean, he literally said absolutely nothing about who he actually is as a person. Wait, oh my gosh. All seriousness, playing that character was exhausting. So if you or someone else in the New York City area is looking for someone to play a New York finance bro, hit me up. So if that's the case, why are we so conditioned to introducing ourselves like this? I mean, if you literally just took my name and replaced it with somebody else's, you wouldn't be able to tell us apart. Which, now that I think about it, I guess that's what it means to be a New York City finance bro. I'd reason, as conceited as it may sound, we just don't think about ourselves enough, or rather, what our identity actually is. Identity. I feel like when we hear that word, we're all sort of generally aware of what it vaguely means, but we don't want to admit we don't know what it actually means. I mean, myself included. So I looked it up, and according to Psych Today, your identity encompasses the memories, experiences, relationships, and values that create one's sense of self. So if your memories, experiences, relationships, and values are what make up your identity, what make you you and me, then I think it's about time we get serious about really thinking about and redefining what our identity actually is. Regret is this reactionary emotion, right? An emotion we experience when we wish we could have done things differently or been someone else, lived a different life. So if that's the case, how do we minimize the likelihood of that reaction? Simple. We need to meet regret where it hangs out. Death. I know death is this incredibly taboo subject that as human beings we're naturally inclined to avoid whenever possible, but that doesn't mean we can't use it as a valuable tool to be able to reframe our mindsets so that we can live a life with less regret. If we can place ourselves in that future mindset, a point at which we're thinking about the past, right? We're thinking about the life we've lived, the person we've been, and we're also naturally probably getting asked questions like, did you have any regrets? Then we can take that knowledge and information and start working backwards towards the present. Because if we're able to explicitly define the type of person we want to be, the type of life we aspire to live, we can make those micro adjustments in our day-to-day behaviors and decisions that will ultimately more closely align us with our own versions of our ideal selves and our ideal lives. And in the process of doing so, we might be able to take that left when regret would have taken a right. So at that, hopefully, far away point in life, that point of death, what sort of memories, experiences, relationships, and values, or better said, identity, would you hope to have? What sort of identity would you be proud to have embodied during your life? One that you wouldn't regret. Not to be morbid, but essentially, you're thinking about the eulogy you'd hope for someone to give at your own funeral. What sort of stories will they tell about you? What emotions will those present feel? If you haven't seen my last video, it's a bit of a precursor and provides some context to the very video you're watching right now. But if not, totally cool. Essentially, at the end of the video, I mentioned this exact framework posed in the question, who am I? And in that video, I didn't quite share my own answer, which is a bit unfair of me, right? To pose a question that I myself haven't thought about before. So with that being said, I thought I would take this opportunity to share with all of you some of my own private thoughts that I wrote down in my journal way back when. I wrote this entry on September 1st, 2021 at 9:24 in the morning, the second week of working full time, of being an adult. And at the very top, hopefully you can see this, I write, who am I? And beneath that I write, try to frame it in the context of what will people say at your funeral or when you're long gone, but they're reminded of you in passing or when your name comes up in conversation. And I write quite a bit, almost an entire page of thoughts, but for the sake of this video, I'm only gonna read a handful. If you're curious about the rest, I will leave a link in the description. But to start, someone who valued his relationships with family, friends, colleagues, peers, and mentors above all else in life, above status, career, and so on. Someone who listens with intention and care and is there for you when you need him. Someone who you knew cared deeply about you, even if time has passed since you last spoke, made you feel appreciated. Someone who sought to forge a deep and meaningful connection with you to truly understand you for who you are at the crux of it all. Someone true to his word, who lived according to his values and priorities in life, a man of integrity. A man comfortable with his vulnerability and own mortality. A man who knew his calling and purpose in life. And at the very bottom I write, I could go on, but the moral of the story is this is the identity I believe I have, the identity I'm trying to best embody each day through my relationships with myself and others and how I live my life. Nothing fancy, a list of bullet points about the person I aspire to be, the identity I would be proud and beyond honored to have. And that's it. My playbook to a life well lived, a life with no regret. Hopefully that gives you some ideas to ponder as you think about your own answer to the question, who am I? And as you think about not only your current identity, but the identity you aspire to embody by that far away future point in your life. All of the memories, experiences, relationships, and values that determine who you uniquely are. Because once you do so, you can make the shift from thinking about who you are to who you can become. Because ultimately, who you become will determine the life you live. Well, that version of yourself you aspire to be is grounded in the future. Your ability to become that person is ultimately grounded in the present, in the decisions you make, and the actions you intentionally take in your day-to-day life. So after you've answered or reworked your answer to the question, who am I? I'd encourage you all to start thinking about what sort of steps you can take or micro adjustments you can make in your day-to-day life that will allow you to best embody that identity. Perhaps it's putting your phone in a completely different room, or shutting it off entirely when you're spending quality time with someone, or the next time you catch up with someone you haven't seen in a while, asking them, how are you really feeling right now? And mean it. Seek to listen, to understand. Be curious and make the space for them to be vulnerable. Because we've all been in those conversations where someone will ask you, how are you doing? They'll barely listen or acknowledge what you're saying, and then just immediately just start talking with themselves as if they just asked that question as a formality. And I don't know about how all of you feel, but those conversations suck. Ultimately, whatever sort of journeys or adventures you hope to embark on in life, journeys and adventures you may think are critical to a life well lived with no regret, just remember that the only luggage, the only baggage you carry with you everywhere you go is you. All of the memories, experiences, relationships, and values that make up who you uniquely are, your identity. So a regret is an emotion grounded in the past, an emotion we experience when we think about the person we could have been, the life we could have lived. There's nothing we can do about the past, but there's absolutely everything we can do about the future. And it all starts with what you do in the present, in this very moment. I wish I could have chatted a bit longer, but I've got somewhere to be.